Hi everybody, this is Will Bowen with today's Jumpstart. We're continuing our discussion of If by Rudyard Kipling as we meander down the beach here in Hollywood Beach, Florida. I'm going to just take a little snippet today and I'm going to talk about that. And it's a follow-up to the very opening line, which is, if you can keep your head while all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. Okay? If you can keep your head while all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. The next part is, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting. 2. Probably one of the most doubted people in the last 50 years was Steve Jobs. When Steve Jobs and Stephen Wozniak built the first Apple computer, which was basically just a piece of wood with lights on it that would flash on and off. And then he had the idea to begin to market it to the masses. Back then, only hobbyists and enthusiasts had computers, or what they called computers back then. But Jobs had a vision of everyone having a computer. In fact, I'm using a Steve Jobs creation to record this. I've got 4 or 5 expensive cameras, but I found that my iPhone, which is portable, does everything. When Jobs wanted to recreate the phone, everybody thought he was crazy, thought it was impossible. The biggest thing back then was they said that phones could never have the bandwidth. Well, what happened was Jobs built the phone, and that forced the phone companies to build out their sales towers and increase their bandwidth. If you can trust yourself while all men doubt you, if you look at any great successful person like Steve Jobs, even in many cases athletes, people have told great athletes, you'll never amount to much, you'll never be able to do this, you can't do that. Consider Vilma Rudolph, the great Olympic runner who had braces on her legs as a child. And she had the idea that if she took the braces off and went out and ran, she'd actually get better. If I'm not mistaken, she had polio. Or they thought she did. So she wore the braces during the day, but what she would do is, at night she would take the braces off, climb out the window and go run. Next morning she'd get up and she'd go run, and she'd come back and put the braces on. As I get older, I find, and I'm sure you do too, there's a reason they say that doctors are practicing. They're trying to figure it out. I've been plagued by serious indigestion for years. Just acid, just like burning in my chest, and I've been on all the drugs, I tried all the natural stuff, and finally I went, okay, what do I think? What would do the difference? And 3 weeks ago, I gave up coffee, and I haven't had a flare-up of indigestion since. Now, some people would doubt that that was the solution. In other words, my doctor even doubted it, because I brought it up to her, saying, well, what if I gave up coffee? Well, you should be able to have a cup of coffee. Ultimately, all great changes in society and in our lives come from our own little brains figuring stuff out and making it happen. And as Earl Nightingale said, and when it comes to brains, you own one, free and clear, so put it to use. Trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting, too. In other words, don't expect them to come along and to understand. If Stephen Jobs would have spent all of his time trying to convince everybody else that he was right, he would have never gotten anything done. He saw things bigger and more broadly and more advanced than anyone, and it would have been a waste of time, but he had to understand not everyone's going to get this. The people he was working with, that's why he didn't even share the full concept with everybody of many projects. He had them working on their parts, but then he would pull them together because people needed to see the entire thing fit together into one magnificent piece. Trust yourself. You got a brain. Whatever you come up with, you got this. You can handle it. Enjoy today, and we'll talk tomorrow. Bye-bye.